Spring has passed, summer is officially here, and we are less than 100 days to kick off for Louisville football. From the Pink Seats podcast, the only Louisville football podcast in the city covering the program year-round. We've had a couple of weeks off, but we are back better than ever. So we dive into a new series here on the show. We'll get into all of that and welcome in our guest of the night, Stephen Herron, to talk a little bit about his football journey and everything of that nature. But first of all, fellas, great to see you. Keith, Matt, Vince will join us for the interview with Stephen, but for now, it's just the three of us. How we doing, fellas?
Doing great. I mean, we've interviewed a lot of guys over the course of the show. That might have been like one of my favorite interviews in terms of like just the storytelling and just the behind the curtain scenes of like the recruitment of a highly regarded athlete going to an academic institution. And like, I loved it. It was fantastic.
Yeah, he's definitely someone I want to try and get on to just tell more stories and hear more from him, because I feel like we just started to scratch the surface with him. But other than that, I'm tired, man. I'm moving. Finally, it's happening.
Yeah. A little state-to-state moving action. How is the moving going?
Packing's going slow but steady. First wave of actually moving stuff starts this weekend.
Okay.
So got the pickup truck ready. Got like half my couch broken apart and ready just to take out the side door and put in the tailgate, put in the back of my truck, and getting the kitchen and things packed away and just trying to figure out, okay, what do I need to move first? What do I need to move next?
Yeah.
Get it all game planned. So
moving sucks, man. It's like the worst thing ever.
I get why people pay professionals.
Correct. My take on moving, I told Presley this, who also recently moved, is that it is in your best interest when you can. Cross state, probably a little different. I don't know relocation, how that works if you're doing that route, but if you're just moving state to state, like that's a little bit trickier to get some movers. But if you're moving just across the city or a couple down the street, you're wasting your time and effort and the pain in your lower back by not hiring movers. It was the greatest decision I ever made, and we'll never not hire movers, even if I have to save up a couple of weeks of paychecks to do so.
Yeah, I don't blame you there. Yeah. Didn't want to look at the price for cross state just because I looked at the price of like a rental for a generic moving company where you haul your own things.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the price tag just to rent like a truck for that made the pockets hurt a little bit.
Yes, I can only imagine, man. That is a land that nobody wants to be in, moving. But
that's why I've been in my apartment for as long as I have. I don't want to move. I've moved like 6 times in a 2-year span. Like, I don't want to do it again.
Yeah, you chose to be on the second floor, though, so you got to walk up those damn steps anytime you move. I wouldn't move either, man. I just lived there for forever at this point. Like, you got something good, don't let it go waste. But we, like I mentioned before, we are starting a new series as we get closer to kickoff, the countdown to kickoff, less than 100 days. And over the course of the next 12 weeks, we will be joined each episode by a guest of some type, whether it be a player, former coach, current coach, local media, national media. We're going to be joined by some great guests as we get closer to what could be one of the most important seasons in Louisville football history, a real legitimate shot at a college football playoff appearance in year 1 of the expanded playoff. And so we're going to do our best to fill in these very long, dragged out sports months of June, July, and August, and fill it with great Louisville football content. So tonight we'll start that with Stephen Herron, who played 1 year here at Louisville this past season after playing the first 4 or 5 years of his career at Stanford. Is a Trinity graduate. You'll get to hear him and Vince just totally nerd out over Trinity. But he is a local guy who really personifies professionalism and how to carry yourself at the highest level. And his story is so fascinating, from playing at Trinity to being recruited and ultimately committing to Michigan to ultimately landing in Stanford and going through some really tough times in terms of winning football out there. I guess I should say the lack of winning football, but came to Louisville with a mission and a purpose to lead and to win. And it's great to see that accomplished in his 1 year at home. This interview is extremely fascinating. It is one of the longer interviews that we've done, but it is worth every second of listening or watching, whichever you choose to do. A great story and just going to be, it was only for one season, but you walk away saying like, damn, I would have loved to have had Stephen Herron for one more season here at Louisville. So This is great content here. So we thank you all so much for tuning in. Subscribe if you have not subscribed to the YouTube channel. Follow us on Twitter at Pink Seats Pod and at the State of Lou at U of L Report. And without further ado, let's go ahead jump into week 1 of the countdown to kickoff. We'll be joined by Stephen Herron.
Mr. and Mrs. is for everyone, from a more traditional 90 proof to a cash strength that's smoother. In 2013, Russ going to the hole, and boy, could you use that right now. Mr. and Mrs. Bourbon covers tastes, all different taste of preferences, 6 different bourbons that they're offering. Be among the first to try Mr. and Mrs. Bourbon, the official bourbon of the State of Louisville and the Starting 502 podcast, on shelves anywhere you find your liquor, and now online at mrandmrsbourbon.com.
All right, and we're welcoming on one of my, favorite guests, one of the people I've been waiting to have on the show for a very long time. One of my Trinity brothers, Stephen Herron. Welcome into the show. I'm gonna get all the Trinity stuff out right now because I know Jacob and Matt and Keith. They really don't want to hear any of that stuff and everything. So I guess for me, thank you, because after I graduated, you guys ended up beating Mayo, who beat us my senior year in the playoffs. So it felt kind of good with all that. And but what kind of stuff and lessons did you learn, along the lines with Coach Beatty and things like that helped and propelled you, onto the next level at Stanford, at Louisville?
Well, first of all, thank you guys. I appreciate the opportunity to come and talk to you guys, talk to the fans here. It's been great. But to start off with Trinity, what do I feel like I learned? Honestly, a big level of perseverance. So I transferred to Trinity after my freshman season at New Albany High School across the bridge, transferred over to Trinity. And then honestly, Leslie, so I had not really known Leslie. I'd kind of met him. Nathan Leslie was my D-line coach, by the way, at Trinity. I'd kind of known him for a little while, but not really. Bumped into him here and there at a camp or two locally. And then all of a sudden, I ended up kind of just looking into the opportunity. I knew I didn't want to stay in Indiana anymore. My parents had gotten divorced. So I went over to Trinity, took a look at it. And I remember the first thing he told me in his Eastern Kentucky accent is that he didn't care one bit who I was, what my name was, about anything. And that's honestly something I've always sought. My parents were really big growing up, kind of being the first to criticize me, but also, help me, tell me I did good, kind of just keep me humble. And I think Leslie was honestly at this time, this summer was the time I got my first offer, and then it kind of got rolling. Leslie really kept me humble. And Beatty, as you know, is pretty natural at keeping everybody humble. So I think Leslie to this day tells me that I'm the only one to ever get him that upset where he thinks he thought he may have hurt a child.
Oh yeah. I've seen this man make two 18-year-olds, you could say grown adults in quotations or whatever, but two really big guys, Connor Foose and Landon Carolla, run around the sideline, hold hands because they wouldn't stop fist fighting. These are two interior defensive linemen, guys that played your position, are holding hands, running around. Yeah, he did a really good job of keeping everyone humble. And Beatty, of course, in his own Beatty way, is great at keeping. I've seen him call just about every wide receiver, everything in the book from Helen Keller to
you're telling me.
Yeah, right.
But really, just be able to have that opportunity. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was really just saying, just to have that opportunity to go into Trinity and kind of just have that humbling experience, grow with that team. As you know, Trinity is a winning school with a winning pedigree. However, if you really look at the stats, look at the numbers, it's not like they have 4 and 5 stars coming out of that school every year. They've got a bunch of guys who are just willing to work hard and willing just to do their job, do their 111th. And that was kind of where I kind of first heard that ideal, do your 111th and what that means. And playing 4-eye in Cobb's defense at 215 pounds, not my best shot. I did it pretty well. We averaged I think it was 2.1 yards a carry that year. My junior year was our best year. Actually, I lost my senior year sadly. But kind of coming in and having all those opportunities to really learn, grow as an individual for my future in ball was amazing. I wouldn't pass it up.
When did you know that playing at Trinity that you were going to be able to play at the next level? Was it pretty early on, or did it kind of gradually grow in terms of your game?
Well, before we got there, I knew there was a kid that was coming over that everybody was like, "Hey, this kid right here, they're talking Jason Hatcher right here."
Yeah.
So
that's high praise. High praise.
It's funny because me and Jason had the same trainer, Chris Vaughn. He's still in Louisville. And I used to train with Jason, and I just remember Chris pulling me to the side one day, kind of towards the end of Jason's tenure at UK, and using him as an example and saying like, this is everything I've worked for you not to be. Like Jason was the most athletic being I've seen on play that edge and be able to just stand guys up like that. Personally, I think one of Jason's biggest downfalls was staying home. But that's neither here or there. But really being able to take, I don't know, just the mentality of Jason and kind of put it into my own, and really propel me towards a future in ball. I think probably around junior year, honestly. Like I got my first offer, like literally that summer. I remember I went to Louisville was my first offer, Todd Grantham. His son was at Trinity at the time. It was probably like a year before he went to Mississippi State, and he like pulls me out of the blue and he's like, "Hey, you're that Trinity kid." Mind you, I don't think I've even posted anything. Like this is when this is when I first started getting on Twitter because coaches were telling me to. I didn't even have an Instagram beginning of high school. I didn't like it. So like I don't know how he knows me, and he's like, "Yeah, you're that Trinity kid." I'm like, I'm still getting used to Trinity. I'm like, yeah. I don't even have a T-shirt from Trinity yet. He's like, "All right, you're gonna be with linebackers today." And I'm like, I play end. I just rush fat guys.
No.
And he's like,
he
well,
knew what he was doing.
yeah, he's like, you want to play at the next level, you're going to come with me. And I'm like, all right. So I do that. Turns out well. I get my first offer. Fast forward all through that season, 15-0, junior season, another 15-0. I wouldn't say it was probably towards like middle to end of junior season when honestly we played Eastern. Worst game of my life. Worst game of my life.
Those pesky Eagles, man.
You're telling me.
There it is.
I didn't do anything right that game. I think I had like a negative 18 on Leslie's score. And you know how, especially if you're already messing up and you're Leslie's guy, it's just
he was probably adding on like he's like,
your
shoes untied, your gloves were unstrapped,
everything. I remember he made me come on Sunday just with me and him. It was terrible. But I would feel like honestly that game was a big turning point for me. I felt like I was able to grow as an individual, kind of take that. I remember like after the game, I won't even tell anybody this, but I remember I cried. I was on the way home. I was so upset with myself as an individual because I was like, how am I supposed to be? I had just gotten like the big 4-star rating kind of like bumped up to like close to the 5. And it was like, man, like what am I doing?
Right.
Like, what am I doing? Like how do I perform like that during that game? And then to be able to go talk to them, listen to those coaches, the trust they had in me as an individual, a leader on the team. They kind of just stuck behind me. Like they knew I was really upset with myself and that I think a lot of their coaching, I kind of just did with my own criticism. So they kind of just took a step back and let me work. And I think really that junior year, getting into playoffs was really big as a team. We were able to grow, just seeing all these guys that I felt like, honestly, I hadn't really given a real shot. My sophomore year, the school was still new to me. I'd never been to a Catholic school, never been to this school with so many individuals that seemed like they meshed so well together. And that I didn't, I was new. And so I get in here. I wasn't in a lot of classes with guys that were on a team. I was in all the AP classes. I had like 2 guys on the team that were in the AP classes.
They would not have been in the same classes, Stephen.
Yeah, they didn't play a lot. Yeah. So I'm getting out here and I'm really stressed, honestly. But I think that year was a big turning point for me. They, as a coaching staff, they were able to come over, just sit me down and kind of just walk me through. Like, you don't have to be Superman. You just have to do your job.
Let me cut you off here. You mentioned somebody key in that whole phrase and that whole talk you had right there, and it was Chris Vaughn. And I always remember whenever I was in college, obviously paying attention to you and Rondale and those guys. And Chris would always say the proof's in the pudding, proof's in the pudding. So, speak on Chris and how much Chris has helped to mold yourself, Rondale, a plethora of other players and athletes around the city, and kind of what he means to you.
In my humble opinion, Chris is the guy you want to go to if you want to be at the next level. And sometimes I don't have to lie to you and say that every individual Chris has trained, whether it be football, soccer, basketball, track, all go D1. They don't.
Yeah, you can't shoot 100%.
I've seen Chris be straight up with kids, like 100% honest, and say, look, I really do think your peak is D2 level. You're only getting D3 offers right now. Give me a summer. And completely turn somebody around, like you guys, a lot of D linemen coming out who really are just undersized. We see that one kid from it's like I think it was Ryo, like the year after I left college, I forget his name, but this standout guy ended up going to like West Virginia, I think. You see all of these guys in the area that seem to be so athletic. Sometimes oversized, honestly. All these God-given abilities, these different things that they have with no real guidance. And I think that Chris was honestly the biggest thing that he did for anybody in his training program is just give them guidance. I've seen a lot of kids come in there with no real direction, a lot of athleticism, and he's just kind of just molded them in terms of put the puzzle pieces in the right place. You weren't wrong, you weren't incorrect, you weren't on a bad path. Let's just get you on a more straight and narrow path. And Chris was able to do things for me athletically that I don't know if I would have been able to do without him. I felt like I was athletic before I came to him. I started with training with Chris going into like I think my 6th grade year. And it's funny enough, I actually talk about this all the time with Rondell and Chris. Is that I remember like individuals. I knew Rondell. We grew up together in like Little League. I didn't really get close with Rondell until high school. Little League, I just remember he was this quick little fast guy that nobody could catch, right? So then we ended up transferring to Trinity at the same time. We had talked to New Albany, obviously, and I remember I tried to get him to come train with me at Chris, like my freshman year. I'm the first like freshman to start in years, mind you. That was also because we got a new head coach. I'm not just this saving grace, but we got this new opportunity. I'm like, hey, you should come train with me. Like, you should try it. And he's like, do you have any offers? And I was like, nah. He was like, I don't have any offers. He's like, seems like we're on the same place. And I'm like, okay. So then I kind of give it the year. I'm like, I guess he's not wrong. And then at this point, I'm second guessing myself. I'm like, I've been working hard. Right. And then year goes well. He does well, obviously. I do well. And we come into that next season. And it was a big turning point. He starts coming to train at Chris. And then probably 3 weeks into it, Rondell thought he was going to be the next NBA basketball player. He thought he was going to be the Kyrie
No
Irving.
way in hell.
Swear to God. To this day, I don't know if he'll admit it. I would think he would. But Rondell really thought he was going to go to the NBA. And not to say he could. Lockdown defense, athletic guy, bunnies. But
so he's one of those dudes that definitely sitting over there. This whole NBA, NFL, can we switch over, talk? He's like, oh, 100%. I could go.
Yeah, he can hoop. But he was definitely more of a defender for sure. So just being able to talk with him and then just having him come in that summer and just working and seeing him being able to transform himself, transform his body, and transform really his mindset. I think, again, that was maybe another one of the biggest things I think Chris was really able to do for anybody is transform their mindset. That's one of the biggest things. I remember it started at a really young age. Chris always wears sweatpants. I don't think if you ever see Chris Vaughn out, he's wearing pants. I promise you.
Yeah. Yep.
And I remember asking him, and I was like, "Why? It's 95 degrees out here. We are in heat. Why are you wearing pants?" And he's like, "It's a mindset." And I'm like, "Mindset? That's BS."
Yeah,
it's a mindset.
And it was the simplest thing, but for some reason that mindset thing really stuck with me. Because anytime we asked him a question about why we had to do this or that, or I don't know, something, it was always a mindset, and that just stuck with me. And it seems like anybody I've talked to that's trained with Chris, everything's a mindset. Everybody has carried that with him, and I think just his ability to be able to mold individuals, mold athletes, and get them to the next level, and really take advantage of their peak athleticism and peak ability has been second to none.
So, Stephen, going back to your recruitment real quick, we've talked to a handful of guys over the years doing the show, but I don't think we've talked to very many guys who have an offer sheet quite like yours. I mean, like Bama, Florida, Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State, Oregon.
I had Morehead State,
Texas.
You talk to me weekly.
I had Georgetown.
I mean, you mentioned how stressful it was. I mean, what was that entire process like, knowing you're a highly sought after guy, and then when you throw into the mix being a local guy in places like Louisville and Kentucky are obviously invested in your recruitment, trying to keep you in state. What was that whole recruiting process like when you got guys like Urban Meyer, Kirby Smart, Nick Saban, Jim Harbaugh, trying to get you to come play for you?
Honestly, it was amazing. It was great. I wouldn't be able to put that into words. I don't know. I really struggled with it during the recruiting process. You get all these people from Rivals or 247, and they're like, "Hey, how was this? How was that?" And I remember just giving the same answer, "Oh, it was great." But in retrospect, looking back at it, it was stressful. But I think it was something that was also able to help mold me. Especially, I thought about it again when I went into the transfer portal after graduating from Stanford. Is that I was able to kind of learn how to sift through all of that hoopla that the coaches are feeding you, that they're telling 20 other guys on the same visit. I think it was really stressful, but I think it was really eye-opening. I've always been, I don't know, pretty good about coming across individuals and at least being able to sense them out for me. You know, do you have good intentions for me as an individual? And I think that recruiting was great. I was able to meet a lot of new people that I've honestly connected with over the years. Anytime I've seen a coach that recruited me at during high school, and then I was at Stanford or at Louisville, and I was able to reconnect with them. Like, to me, it felt so good because I felt like one thing that my parents harped on was that regardless of where you decide to go, please don't break those bridges. Don't tear those bridges that you've built down, because you don't know where you're going to see these individuals. Maybe you have to transfer. Maybe down the road you want to work in football. Like, what is the point of breaking down all these bridges that you've built up, and that now you want to see flourish into the future? So I would say that for me, that recruitment experience was really cool. I think probably the most memorable experience though may have been Nick Saban. Like, honestly, like that. So apparently,
that's pretty memorable.
Yeah, like honestly, apparently. So, long story short, they had a DB coach. For some reason, I cannot think of his name. He was at UK previously and already offered Jerry's Prince. So he had known Chris a while. So I was just like, okay, blah, blah, blah. I don't know this guy. You know what I mean? So, I went and met him, and I remember he had come down to Trinity one day. He's like, hey, how you doing? Let's talk. So we sat and talked for like 5 minutes during lunch and kind of just chatted. And he was like, look, I'm going to tell you straight up. I think you're athletic. I think you're a smart guy. Let's get you down for a visit. So I remember I come down for a visit. I do like a camp, kind of go out with, why can I not think of his name? Tosh Lapoy. I go out with Poi. We kind of just do some one-on-one drills and get everything situated. I remember it is so humid. It's like 101 on that turf that day, and it is humid. I'm sweating. I got there like the night before.
You can't go down in Alabama. You can't. You got to have
that's what I'm saying. And I'm already like a little nervous because the whole way down there, I remember I rode down with Chris. It was me, Chris, and like 2 other kids in the car. And we kind of did like a road trip that we had Mississippi State, Alabama, and Ole Miss. They all had a camp. We had 2 camps on Sunday, Saturday, and Ole Miss, Mississippi State was on Sunday, and then we had Alabama on Saturday. Needless to say, I did no drills on Sunday. I met with the coaches, and I told them, I said, I'll come back for camp. I can't do it today. I'm sorry. But meeting with Nick Saban, honestly, I knew he was a small guy, but I didn't expect him to be that small. He's shorter than Rondell, I think. He's a shorter guy.
I rings on the table stand out, though. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, you're telling me we're getting there. So I remember my dad was on his business trip, so he couldn't come. It's just me, my mom, and Chris in there. And we're all sitting there. Chris knows this guy. He's talked to him a few times. So he's sitting there chatting with them, and then they call me in. I remember walking in, I see, I don't know, probably 20, 25, 30 rings on this table. This small coffee table filled edge to edge. He's got one couch on the other side, and it's like a small, like, love seat just for him. And then he's got like a big couch just for me. So then I'm just sitting there talking to him, and he's like, hey, Steven, let's just sit down and chat. Not about football. Like, tell me about yourself. So I tell him about myself, Louisville, Kentucky, blah, blah, only child, all to kind of get into the nitty gritty. He's like, what do you want to do long term? I'm like, I have to go to the NFL, of course. And he's like, no, I don't care about that. You're a smart kid. I didn't recruit you here just to come play football. I want to know what you want to do outside of things. I want to tell you if I can give you these things. And so I tell him what I want to do in school. I'm thinking about law school at the time. I know I want to do business, maybe brand marketing. And he's like, okay, we don't have the best schools and all of that. I can promise you'll graduate. But one thing I can promise you is that if you come in here and you do what I tell you for 3 to 4 years, I can guarantee you I'll put you in the NFL. But if not, I've got 3 more of you on my bench. I understand. And I was like, and for me in the moment, I remember I just sat there and I had this like blank smile on my face, and I was like,
okay,
speechless.
Yeah.
And he was like, I mean that in the best way. And I was like, no, honestly, I'm not offended. I took it in the best way. I've just never had anybody say it. And he's like, well, maybe that's the problem. And so we went on, had the rest of our, good conversation. I got an offer that day, talked a lot about it. And then I remember I left that day and was like, that's what I want to get from coaches. After that, I think I didn't want to hear any type of, again, hoopla that the coaches were feeding me. I remember the first thing they'd ask me, like, oh, you have any questions? I'm like, yeah. what do you really have in mind for me? Like, not what you think I could do, not what I'm gonna do. What do you really have in mind for me? Where can I be? And then, ended up committed to Michigan with Harbaugh, and really, Greg Madison was the guy I committed to. He was the D-line coach at the time. I committed to them like July 26th of junior, like going into junior year. It's like this big barbecue weekend. I remember they were like, "You're the only guy we want." The only other guy we wanted was Kayvon Thibodeau, who ended up committed to Oregon like 2 weeks prior.
Pretty good company.
Yeah.
He's like, "This is the only other guy." He shows me the board in the room. Mind you, they could have just erased it, but he's like, "You are top two guys."
No. Working in that room, I'm telling you right now, Stephen, that's too much effort. We don't do that.
I figure so, because they had other names. It was like me and him at 1 and 2, and they were all just the bottom of the board. And they were like, no, I didn't really think the stars meant a lot, but they were all like some lower ranking guys. I was like, okay, that's not a big deal. So are you sure? You don't have to lie to me. And I remember Greg Madison and Jim Harbaugh looked me straight in my face, and they were like, no, like, you're the only guy we want. I'm like, okay. Did that like 6 months, right around Christmas time. They offered like 7 dudes in like 2 weeks. I called the coach. Coach, I just had like 20 sacks. No disrespect, but did I do something wrong? Like, did you my grades? I just made the dean's list for the 3rd time in a row. Like, is there anything I could do better? Like, I promise you, I'm trying to improve. Like, what can I do? And he's like, oh no, just looking for more company. I'm like, what happened to no more company, right? And so at that point, Stanford stayed pretty close on me. Kept talking to me, and that always kind of rung true with me. Like, just continuing to stay in my corner even after I've kind of turned a blind eye to you. And remember, they were like, hey, Stephen, like, we still see you're taking AP classes. Maybe you get down for a visit. I remember Stanford was like one of the last schools to offer me. Like, they really wanted me to come out for a visit, really wanted me to camp. And I was like, guys, I can't. I'm sorry, I can't afford to fly out to the farthest point of the country just for a maybe. Like,
exactly.
If you tell me I'm offered, I promise you I'll come. They offered me like, I think it was like, I don't know, February, March-ish. I think I was out there like spring break, which at Trinity is like March 20th, end of the week, end of the month, something like that. Went out there, had a great visit. I remember it was spring and Stanford's on this quarter system, so I didn't see any players. Just what we call now like the NARPs, non-athletic regular. So I see everybody.
I can't believe he just dropped that on the show. That's pretty good.
So I'm coming from Louisville, Kentucky, from this place that seems that I think I'm thinking big, right? And then I go out to the West Coast. It's so progressive, so liberal that I go in here and I don't know a thing. I remember I opened the door for somebody and they looked at me like I was weird. And I was like, nah, I can't come here. And so I remember I'm just like, for those last few months, I'm just thinking like, how's this gonna work? Remember, I got into Stanford early, and for me, that was kind of it. It was like I was already having second thoughts about Michigan. I got in early, and it was like I just don't think I can pass that up. Like, I always knew that football wasn't gonna last forever. And honestly, from getting into high school, I knew I didn't want it to, especially after you start just doing more research into concussions. I think it's everybody's due diligence to at least do some research. Have an idea of what you're going up against. Like, what do statistics say? So I remember looking at it all, not really caring, but just keeping it in mind. And then ended up getting in early and was like, oh, like this has to be it. Like this is the opportunity. Solomon Thomas had just gotten drafted 3rd. And I'm like, no, like this, you can't tell me I can't go from here. They went to 9 straight bowl games. Exactly. 9 straight bowl games.
Retrospect, you can go they'll find you wherever.
Retrospect, I didn't go to 1, but that's okay.
So now you gave a very mature, buttoned-up answer, giving us some stories about the recruitment process. I want you to loosen the tie a little bit. No incriminating evidence on anybody. So if anyone broke any rules, we don't want to know that. But let's get some fun recruiting stories. What's some of the more adventurous things you did on some of the visits?
Or do you have any good Harbaugh stories?
Harbaugh. Okay, we'll start with Harbaugh, and then I got 2 more: Alabama and Georgia. Harbaugh was, needless to say, a quirky guy. Was
he always wearing khakis?
Yes. Yep. That rings true. Like that was no joke. I think I went up there because of that. I'm like, if you know me, I love to drive. I've driven from Stanford to Indiana like 3 different times now. I've got a bunch of, I really like driving. It's fun to me. Oh, no, I remember I had made that trip. from Louisville to Michigan, which is like 6 hours. I had made that trip honestly, like, I don't know, every 2 weeks. Like, it was fun to go up there. I was kind of friends with some, at least the young guys on the team. Like, let's get. I remember, like, we bump into him one night downtown Ann Arbor. He is by himself, and mind you, like, it is like midnight. It's Friday night. They're taking me out. I'm going out on the town. I want to experience Ann Arbor.
Yeah.
And then we see him out. I think I have never had my cheeks clench up so tightly. I see this man, and mind you, I'm just like, oh, I'm not supposed to be here. I had never been like in trouble for anything like that, so I'm already sweating bricks. I'm just real nervous. And I see him. He's like, Steven, how you doing? I'm like, hey, coach. He's like, why are you talking like that? You're not a quiet guy. I'm like, oh, nothing. I kind of like look away. He's like, oh, I get it. That's what I'm saying. He's like, oh, I get it. It's midnight and you see the big guy, so you think that's a problem. And I'm like, no. And just sitting there like that. And he's like, I can't have a good time too. I just came out for a good sandwich and a beer. That's it.
That's my kind of guy right there, man. I'm here for that.
I'm like, all right, that's cool with me. So from that time forward, it was always just like every time I saw him, it was like, hey, how you doing? And I don't know, it was always great. Like he was a quirky guy, but honestly, I don't think he is as bad as everybody gives him a rap for. I just think he can be misunderstood for sure. But I do think he means well.
He's just a football guy.
Yeah. He kind of reminds me of Coverdale, Lococo. Like,
oh yeah, 100%.
That's exactly. I remember like explaining that to Chris and Leslie, because Leslie thought the same thing. He was like, nah, he's a weirdo. And I'm like, no, like he just reminds me of Coverdale. He's just a quirky guy, but he does love football. I will give him that. He loves
football. If you want to talk football with either one of those guys, I'm sure you could sit there and talk to him about it for more than 24 hours.
Exactly. But yeah, that was probably a funny Harbaugh story. Getting into Bama. So I think it was he a year or two older than me? I think it was my maybe sophomore year, junior year, maybe. I don't know, one of the two. We played Lexington Lafayette, and they had Jedrick Wills. And I remember, like, Jedrick's, if you don't remember seeing Jedrick's highlight tape, he's, like, one of the only 5-stars in Kentucky, and his highlight tape isn't, like, pass pro, locking guys down. It's run blocking and pancaking them for 4.5 straight minutes. I remember Chris made me watch that every day, every single day. That week was honestly, like, probably the equivalent of like Hell Week for me. It was terrible. I remember going into I had a good week the game before, and Chris was like, no, like, I don't care who that was. They're not him. His whole point is to make you look goofy because the news is blowing this up. This is supposed to be a matchup. He's trying to make you look stupid. And I'm like, no, like, I know Jedrick. He's like, what does that matter? Like, you know who's going to be at this game? And I'm like, no. He's like, well, like, probably a few Power Fives where you guys are both going to have offers from. So he's like, I don't know if Saban's going to be there, but Alabama's going to be there. He's like, Stoops said he is going to be there. He already said that in a press conference this week. And I'm like, oh, great. Okay. So, let me lock in. So I remember every day, I think my schedule, like, of course, that was before they kind of started like trying to beat the heat at Trinity, and we were just practicing after school. I would go to Chris in the morning. Yeah, you're telling me. It's post-COVID. That's what happened. But I remember I'm training in the morning at 6 a.m. School starts at like 8:30 or something like that, or 8. And so I'm like getting in there, getting to the school real quick, showering, almost late every day that week, the first period. Good thing my first period was Coverdale, so he didn't have too much of a problem. He was he took some of those little like the AP World Points off and was like, oh, okay, that'll work.
There you go.
I remember that, had the training every week, and then had the practice every week or every day, and then would go to Chris after practice, and that would be more of kind of just like a hand session. I remember every day he was just like, look, like you have to dominate this game. Like this is maybe your biggest game in high school. I want to let you know that. And he was like, I'm not trying to pump your head. I'm not trying to make you nervous. This is just a fact. Like, if you perform against this guy, essentially, as long as you just don't fall off, you'll be fine. And I'm like, okay, that's realistic. So I remember I go in, beginning of the game, like first drive, honestly, not gonna lie, he's a big dude. He put hands on me. I went to set the edge. I remember I slipped on that turf. It was a new turf. I slipped, and you can see it on film. Like it's like the inside of my cleat. Literally maybe one cleat in the ground. My knee is touching the ground, trying to like extend this 325-pound dude.
Oh, I believe it. That dude completely spun my jerk. Like I was pursuing to the right or left, one or the other, and he was coming. He was supposed to climb up to me. I was going to pursue, and he tried to reach and grab me and just completely like yanked my whole shoulder pad off.
That's what I'm saying. So I'm sitting there. I remember like after that drive, Leslie looks at me. He said, in some more choice words, he said, you better lock in. Like this is 3 minutes into the first quarter. You better lock in. I didn't like that. And I'm like, all right, I got you. So like next drive, go out, get like a tackle or two, tackle for loss. And then, kind of the rest of the game, I ended up with like 2 sacks. We win the game by like 2 tugs. And that came out to be like a really good experience for me. Anyway, getting back to the college stories, I see Jedrick at Bama. He ends up going to Bama. I see him, I guess, what is his freshman year. And I go in for another visit, and I'm there with him, Alex Leatherwood, and 2 other guys. I can't remember the names, but all these guys, they're all linemen, and they're all looking at me. And, we go out to like this BW3s, and we're just having a good time. They're like, all right, like, let's just get the spill. Like, what else are you looking at? We're not really here to make you come to Bama because, again, I'm sure Saban already told you he's got a bunch of guys that are really good that don't play. And I'm like, yeah.
You're the third Stephen Herron we've seen this week.
I'm like, honestly, like Michigan, Ohio State was starting to take like a drop for me because Larry Johnson was trying to tell me I was going to play as a freshman in the 5-man front in Power 5 football. And I just didn't believe that. See, your faces are the same face I had in that office. I was like,
no, the math ain't math in there.
That's what I'm saying. Like, you're going to play a 5-man front in college football right now. You just brought the 2 best D-line classes they've seen ever in the ranking era back to back, and you're telling me I'm going to come play as a freshman in a 5-man front. I just don't think so. Anyway, I see them on this visit. I remember they all look at me and they're like, okay, so where else? Just Michigan? And I'm like, I'm Stanford. They're like, what are you doing here? I said, what? And they all looked at me in unison. They said, go to Stanford. And I'm like, what? And they're like, dude, like, I don't know if you know, but you can go to the NFL from anywhere. I'm like, oh, yeah. Why do you think they're still in it? Like, I know that. And they're like, don't waste your time here. You can come go to the league from here, but you can go to the league from there. You're a smart guy. Go to Stanford. Honestly, to me, that was like a laugh out loud moment. I remember just laughing, and they were like, it's funny, but we're not kidding. Like, go to Stanford. That was probably one of like the biggest solidifying moments. I was just like, oh, like, it's not that I knew these individuals and trusted their opinions, but it was just like, you guys already went through this.
Why would they want to lie to you?
That's what I'm saying. Like, what purpose do you have to give me bad information?
Exactly.
So honestly, that was a really eye-opening experience for me. And then I would say Georgia was pretty similar to kind of the Michigan experience. I didn't see Kirby Smart out, but they had a young D-line coach, Trey Scott. He had just gotten there. Really good dude, young guy, but he was a young guy, so I didn't know how long he was going to be there. But I remember coming with a visit, him sitting me down. He was, again, a young guy, and I think sometimes young coaches try to like bridge the gap by like being real hip.
Cool.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
How do you do, fellow kids? Like a lot of stuff like, hey, what's up, bro? Like, how you doing? I'm like, hey, like, no. I remember I telling him straight to me, I was like, no disrespect, but you don't have to fake it with me, man. Like, I saw how you talked to your wife the other day. Like, you're a regular guy. It's okay. I don't need that. I'm a regular dude too, bro. I don't need any of the flash.
Yeah.
I don't need any of the flash. And like, mind you, this was like, I took this visit still when I was committed to Michigan, towards the end when I kind of knew it was kind of over. And so that was the end of junior year. I remember I was like, hey, like, respectfully, I got that treatment sophomore year when I was kind of on the blow up. Like, now I'm already committed. They don't really care about me anymore. Like, if I was to decommit, maybe it'd be a big thing. But like, whenever I already knew in the back of my head, if I decommit, it's going to be a flip. Like, I don't really want to have to go through this process again. So yeah, so I don't really have a bunch of fun stories. That was kind of it.
Those are perfect. I mean, those are bigger stories than anybody else we've had on the show, to be honest.
That story about the Bama guys just saying, "The hell are you doing here? Go to Stanford." That's wild.
Get out of here, my mind. I'm just sitting there. They're like, what are you doing here? And I'm like, what do you mean? Like,
I got a free visit.
Stanford thing. Go there, man. Don't go here. And I'm like,
ask you a note. We hate it here. They have it bugged.
I was like, blink twice if you hate it. Like, what's
All right, so I mean, I gotta ask, man. None of us were smart enough to go to Stanford. Like, what was
not
it
even
like?
Close?
What was it like to go there? What was the school experience paired with the athletic experience? I mean, it had to have been tough. Had to have been a challenge. But I mean, you got through it at the end of the day. So I mean, that's
for sure. I think going into Stanford, like I said earlier, so progressive, so liberal, so different from Louisville, Kentucky. And I'd like going into it all, like on that visit, I really was not able to get a good idea of it. So I remember it's funny because I committed to Michigan July 26th of going into junior year. I think I flipped on the exact same day the next year. So I was supposed to go to that same barbecue at Michigan. I remember calling the coach. He's like, "Oh, you coming down?" I'm like, "No, I'm not really gonna make it.
Coming to the barbecue this year, coach.
Not gonna make it." Like
I invited
2
them other
hours
folks,
earlier.
goddammit.
That's what I'm saying. Like 2 days earlier than that, I just got the little letter that, "Oh, like you got into Stanford." I'm like, "Oh, great." Got to make a call now. So we're sitting there, we're about to take our pictures, like our Trinity like team photos, and that's when I like had posted it. Everybody's looking at me, they're like, "What?" I'm like, "I don't even want to talk about it, bro." Like that was it. That was it. But going out to Stanford was honestly really cool. Like being able to experience that grow. I got out there like I don't know, second, third week of June of that 2019 year. Mind you, I think end of May I tore my MCL meniscus. Training actually with Rondell, like he's catching punts. He didn't break my ankles. He's catching punts, and it's like yeah, let's clarify. It's a half speed drill. That's why he didn't break my ankles. If it's full speed, for sure. Me and Rondell have definitely been doors closed. I've definitely got my ankles broke a few times. I'll admit that.
I'll edit that out for you.
But I remember just sitting there and like being like finally getting there. I'm in this knee brace. I'm already bummed. Like I remember if you ask anybody, you could ask my mom, you could ask Leslie. I thought I was gonna go into Stanford. I thought I was gonna graduate in 3, and I thought I was gonna go to the NFL. I thought it was gonna be simple as that. That anybody that said they were gonna do it and that didn't do it before was like, oh, okay, I don't know, you probably punked out, honestly. That's what I thought. So naive to it. I get in there. Um, I don't know. What I feel like now that I've seen it happen every year, how all freshmen are, just bright faced, ready to come in, think they're going to conquer the world. And then I remember I get in there, I've got to go to separate lifts. What is this? I'm strong. I can lift. No, I'm doing push-ups for a freaking ISO. This is crazy.
Yeah.
So I come in, we're doing all the lifts. I can't even do them all. So I'm over here getting bad-mouthed by the strength coaches, and they're like, "Oh, you're a hurt guy. Like, what does it matter anyway?" Just trying to get in my head, and then finally, so I redshirt freshman year. Mind you, that I feel like freshman year was like the biggest way I was able to learn freshman year was just to shut up. So when you first get to Stanford, they kind of put you in some like intro classes because you get there during the summer. They get you in some writing classes so they know that you're prepared to write. Like freshman year, it's only like 6, 7, 8-page papers, but as you go on, it obviously grows. And they're like, we just want to get you on track. So remember, I'm taking this class, we watch this documentary, and I tell everybody this story about my first experience at Stanford. We're watching this documentary, and I forgot this lady's name, but she had dirty blonde hair. So I reference her as the dirty blonde. And I remember this girl in my class absolutely snapped on me and was like, "She's not dirty." And I'm like, "Oh, what?" I'm like, "Who's not dirty?" And she's like, "The lady." And I'm like, "Oh, I'm sorry. No, just dirty blonde, like her hair, like dark roots, blonde hair." And then she's like, "No." And I'm like, "Oh," I'm looking at the professor. I'm like, "Did I say something wrong?" Like, I'm not trying to offend nobody. I already know that guys on the team have already kind of given me like a slight idea, like what not to say, how to watch yourself. And I'm like, "Okay." And the lady's like, "No, that's a common phrase. Like, I'm from California. I know that phrase." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." And then I like repeat it just to like, kind of like as a soft way, and the girl still snaps on me. I remember from that day, I didn't say anything for the next like 5 months. I didn't say anything until our winter term of classes. All my teachers thought I was mute. I would meet with them one-on-one, but in the class they're like, "Why don't you speak? Like you have such good ideas." And I'm like, I just want to take a little bit more time to learn. I don't know.
Yeah.
But then taking that into the experience with football and having all these guys that I felt like were able to, put their arm around me, really help me grow as an individual. I think they all knew that really all I wanted to do was play ball. Like I felt like I really understood football. I had a high football IQ, and I felt like that was my quickest way on the field. So I think I got cleared like going into like week like 8. I think week 7 was our bye. Week 8 we play like UCLA, and of course, like I'm gonna get like some low minutes. I'm getting like third and long minutes. That's cool with me. I just want to play. I remember I get in, I get like half a sack, and I'm like pumped. It's like the third play I'm in, I get like half a sack, and then like that week, my coach's like, "Oh, good job. Like we'll start to integrate you in. We really just wanted to see if your knee was good." That next week, what's the kid's name? I can't think of his name. He played quarterback at Arizona, ended up going to the NFL. I think he's in like the AFL now for like a receiver. Essentially, he was a quarterback who was like 5'9" that ran a 4.3. Forget his name. I just know the kid was bullet fast. And we watched that game the next week on Monday after we played Arizona, and I completely can just see myself running side to sideline, and
Khalil
this kid is
Tate.
making Khalil Tate. He's making me look stupid. Like I'm busting the lineman up. The lineman is no match. Forget you, buddy. I'm one-on-one with Khalil Tate, and I remember he baits me. Mind you, at Chris's, I'm training with Rondale and Wandale Robinson.
Right. Yep.
Most days of the week. They're the same athlete. And I remember all they did in there was run option routes. That's unfair. I'm out here in the same space with Khalil Tate. And I'm like, well, I've been here before. It's fine. So like one play, I tackle him. I'm like, all right, bet. He had got like the ball right over the first, like over the line of scrimmage. And I'm like, oh, okay, like that's fine with me. Like, at least I got you. I remember I talked a little smack too. I let him know.
Of
course,
course,
you, man. Like you didn't get me that time. You got such and such, but you didn't get me.
I feel like you talked the nicest smack ever, Steven.
Yeah.
Watch out, pal. Are you okay? Did I hit you hard enough?
No, it's not like that. Honestly, it's a lot of cursing.
Okay.
I'm out there, and
it's good to know you have a switch.
For sure, you'll have to ask Leslie about it. Leslie's had to calm me down a time or two. But I'm sitting out there, and I remember like he made me fall flat on my face. I remember my pride was so hurt. We finished the game. We end up losing the game by 1. They came back on that winning drive and won the game. And that kind of like just with the rest of the year, I remember just watching that game all off season. Like, I've never been made look stupid like this. Like this was my first. Now I've never been ran over to this day. Good thing for me. But like that was my first time ever had like the crowd where everybody goes like, ooh, and I was like, oh
man,
you know what I mean?
Does
and
it
mind
hurt?
you, like,
does it hurt your ego a little bit? No.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like everybody's just like, mind you, I had gotten cleared like probably 3 weeks before this, but I'm only on practice squad because like, I don't know, I'm return to play. Like I'm just not getting available. I'm a freshman. Like I have no real place on this team. So I'm just practice squad guy with Foster Sorrell, who's I think bouncing around the league still right now, and Walker Little, who's playing for Jacksonville. And I'm just like, these two guys, number 1, number 2 tackles. If I can beat you guys, if I can go play right now. And of course, in my head, I didn't know scout was like heavily scripted like that. And if you go against the scout, like, of course you're gonna look good. I didn't know that. So I'm out there just playing my game. Shaw he's pissed. He's not happy with it. He's like, you're not following the scout. I know you're athletic. I don't care about that. This is scout team.
We need the look. That's
what I'm saying. And I remember the next week, that was the Arizona game. Shaw looked at me. He's like, "Oh, we're gonna throw you in this week," and I'm like, "Bet for sure." Like, excited. It's my time. You know what I mean? After that game, he looked at me and he was just like, "How was the game?" And I was like, "It was a long day, coach." And he was like, "I knew that was gonna happen." Yeah. But coach, we'll work on it. Coach. Yeah.
Got to tear them down before you build them back up, man.
For sure. And honestly, like that ended up being like the best foundation for me and Shaw. Again, Shaw's a quirky guy, kind of similar to like Harbaugh, but not the same quirky. Just a different type of guy. But the quiet guy, not exactly the same caliber coach I'm used to. My dad coached me all the way until high school. I had this fiery like Eastern Ohio coach for my D-line coach my freshman year, who yelled a lot. And then I have Leslie. I'm used to getting yelled at, janked up a little bit, talk too crazy. And then I go out here where my outside linebacker coach is a Mormon. And my head coach doesn't seem to get too emotional. And like this is so different for me. And I remember like that first summer, I think what I didn't realize until later is that was the first time. So me and Shaw got into it like the next, I guess would have been like the spring right before COVID. So we kind of get into it. I'm feeling really good. I had a great offseason. I put on like 10 pounds of muscle, just straight muscle. I'm like 5% fat. I'm feeling great. And so I knew the plays now. Like I felt like I was going to come in and really, vibe for some starting time. And I remember me and him get into it because we're one-on-one scrimmaging, and I had completely laid out our tailback. He was talking smack all day. Me and him are like the best of friends. Austin Jones. He ends up. I actually played him at USC this year. He transferred to USC and then was still there when we played him at Louisville this year. One of my best friends to this day. And I remember he's talking all this smack, and I like laid him out. He gets ready. Me and him were pushing. The O-line's pushing. I'm throwing punches because nobody's pushing with me. It's just me.
Yeah.
And so everybody's late. I'm just me. And then I remember I didn't know Shaw was like that strong of a guy. I just felt this hand just like yank me back. And he's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "You told us to get rowdy. Like, what do you want me to do? Do you want us to be soft? We just lost 7 games. We just lost 7 games. Like 6 of them back to back."
Never
And I remember everybody's like,
life.
the whole practice got quiet. And everybody's like, "Oh." Like they didn't expect him to say that. And so I'm just looking there and like I didn't really expect myself to say that. So I'm just looking at him like, "Oh, am I about to get kicked off, sent home? Like what's the next step here?" And he looks at me and he's like, "Okay."
Yeah, it's weird how coaches love shit like that, you know?
Yeah, like he looks at me and he's like,
absolutely love that.
Yeah, he's like, "Well, let's change it then. Let's be more aggressive." And for that time on, like we didn't hit a lot, but he let us finally start to thud, like actually thud a little bit more. I don't know. It was really memorable experience. I felt like I was able to grow a lot and like getting in to Louisville almost. I feel like the way I was able to grow at Stanford is somewhere that I wasn't. How do I put this into words? I feel like I wouldn't have been able to grow that way anywhere else in the country. Not Michigan, Bama, Georgia, anywhere.
Like
because
those guys and coaches have told you your entire recruiting process. You're a very smart kid, Stephen. You have a Stanford degree for a reason. So, I mean, there was a purpose and a reason that you went to Stanford. I mean, it's not everybody can get into that damn school, you know?
Right.
It's very freaking difficult. And
honestly,
I mean, like you mentioned with Hatcher, guys need to leave Louisville a lot of times to better themselves. A lot of people always say if James Quick would have left Louisville, he would have been 10 times better off. Who knows where he would have been, you know? So, I mean,
for sure.
I'm still happy he came to Louisville.
And yeah, true. And it's great of Shaw for him to recognize that like you're getting rowdy, but you like there's good intent behind it. And
there was always good intent. Now I didn't always have the best way of showing it. Like all my friends knew that I was definitely a little bit of a hothead. Sometimes like what I said wasn't gonna make sense in the moment. And then we'd come back later and be like, "Okay, my bad guys, maybe that was a little too far. This is what I meant by it." And then because like I was always really good. And that was the thing about Stanford is that like everybody in that locker room knew I meant 100% I love you. Like you guys are all my guys. I'm just trying to get us all rowdy. I just want to win games. Simple as that.
While I'm thinking about it, how much of your decision to enter the portal kind of correlated with Stanford's decision to part ways with Shaw?
Honestly, I don't. It's funny you asked that because I feel like I haven't really been able to answer that question. Like, do I think I would have left? Probably. I can't guarantee you, but what I do know is that if I was going to stay at Stanford, it wasn't. I wanted to win, and so far we weren't winning. And what it looked like is that the things that I felt like were the issue weren't going to change. And I didn't feel like they were on my side of the ball. So that was a little bit of a pain. So for me, it was like, okay, let's wait. Maybe let's wait until like I don't know, like right after, like maybe I'll enter the portal, kind of tell Shaw, have a conversation with him. Because a lot of us in my class were kind of on the same page. You guys went to 9 straight bowl games before us. We came here to win. And we feel like we can win. We haven't. So we're all kind of looking at the same thing, like what are we gonna do? What's the next step? And Shaw announced to us that last game that he was gonna end up stepping down. And I was like, okay, like we kind of saw it coming. I didn't know he was gonna step down. But I mean, when you're the schools, you are a legend there. You're the winningest coach in Stanford football history. You have a entire corner of this wing of this building dedicated to you. Like your dad carries the namesake of our defensive coordinator, Willie Shaw, director of defense. Like you guys have done the most for this university. I don't know how they could fire you. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's a hard ask.
Yeah. Right.
When you went to 9 straight bowl games, when you kind of like seceded from the Jim Harbaugh era of that Pac-12 championship. You took it to another one, like another Rose Bowl. Like, the problem was I still felt like we were kind of riding on that high. I felt like we never came down and readjusted things.
I also feel.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I also feel like Stanford sort of got kneecapped by the transfer portal era coming in the way it did because y'all weren't letting anybody in just like that out of the portal. So
no way. Like even I'm trying to think. I don't think we had anybody. We had one guy grad transferring, and he was from Navy. So like that was kind of like my first thing is like I had seen like 1 or 2 guys grad transferring, and it was like that's still different than regular transfer. Like when the transfer portal kind of like really opened up and people were starting to get out in those last 2 years there, it was like, I don't know like how Stanford's going to keep up. And I remember as like we had like this thing called a leadership council, where like we were all voted on. I remember us meeting with Shaw and meeting with our athletic director, and everybody is just like how we don't necessarily need money. Like NIL is going to be cool, but we don't. Everybody comes to Stanford for a different reason than just money. Like we don't need the money. We just want to know like how is Stanford being taken care of? Yeah, like how are you guys going to get us more athletes, more guys that we can compete with? How are you going to build us up as individuals? It doesn't have to be additional guys. I don't know, make us play better, something. Somebody, you're not doing enough, we're not doing enough on both sides. Like we just want to win.
Yeah.
And getting down to those last few months, it was kind of just like, okay, like I guess I'll try something new. So I went to the portal, kind of figured it out. And honestly, it was Notre Dame at first. That's really where I thought I was going to go. They kind of hit me up probably like 2 weeks, probably a week into the portal, because I knew I really wanted to get somewhere into the portal. Like essentially, I think the first day I could, and I knew I wanted to get somewhere before the close, like before the start of winter conditioning. I wanted to start somewhere. I knew I was an old guy coming in. Nobody takes a fifth-year transfer unless they think they're going to play. But one thing that I understood is that like respect needed to be earned across the team. You can't come in here and lead if nobody's seen you when you get here in spring ball. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So I get there, and then I remember I'm kind of just like I'm eating with coaches over the week, and I'm telling coaches straight up, like I'm not really here for games. Good. I don't need an official visit. I don't need anything. I just want to know if you're going to bring me in, do what you say you're going to do, and we're going to win. And Notre Dame was like, I can do that. As simple as that. And he's like, it's like probably like a Monday or Tuesday. He's like, this weekend we're gonna get you out for a visit. So mind you, I clear my schedule. I tell other coaches I can't come for a visit, blah, blah, blah. He calls me back on like Friday and he's like, hey man, like, well, I think we're gonna try to get you in for that visit next week. I'm like, coach, like you just had me cancel there's only 2 weeks of this open. So I kind of just like, he was like, well, like you have to understand. And I'm like, nah, like I don't think I do. Like I told you my window, I told you my thought process, and frankly, I just think this is too big of an opportunity to be played with. This is not recruiting round one where I can redshirt. Like,
yep,
I don't want to do it that way. So
this is it. Last shot.
Yeah.
I mean,
so that's like Friday. So like Saturday, I'm a little bummed. I've got other schools looking, so I'm not too worried. But like Saturday, I'm a little bummed because I really thought it was going to be a smooth transfer. I'm going to get 2 great degrees. Like this is going to be amazing. Go to another school. Going to go have some really big. One thing that always stuck out to me was TV time. I don't have to be in a national championship. I don't have to be in the biggest bowl game, the playoffs. I need TV time. I need to perform well in that TV time.
Notre Dame said, we have Peacock.
So I'm sitting there and I'm just like, okay, how are we going to make this work now? And then I remember like, I woke up Sunday morning. Mind you, time difference, 3-hour time difference. I wake up from I think it's like 6 a.m. Wake up from a call from my mom. She's like, hey, did you see the news? I'm like, Mom, I'm asleep. What news? And she's like, well, the Louisville coach is leaving. And I'm like, she's like, would you ever consider coming home? Because my first go around, I didn't really want to stay at home. Mind you, like that first time around, no bad blood against that coaching staff or UK's coaching staff at the time. I just felt like they didn't value the in-city talent that we had so much of. All of these guys
are not elsewhere. The first person to say that.
That's what I'm saying.
You,
and like
JJ, like all those guys, especially with the Louisville stuff in particular. Guys. I mean, it was
especially with Louisville. UK did a better job, a much better job. But Louisville, like I remember, so I got my first offer. Rondell was there the same day. They had him do the same drills as me. Like we went in and like ran a 40, did our agility drill, 5-10-5, everything. And of course, like Rondell like performed. He ran like a 4.4 flat in like, I don't know, with no like warm up. Like, he'd been running routes, but like he's kind of tired. Already did a 7-on-7. They're like, oh, just run a 40. Let's just see what it is. And he runs like a 4.42. And then they're like, whoo. And I just remember, I'm like, okay, me and him were both looking at each other. He got an offer the week before. His first offer is UK. And so I'm just like, man, like I'm the last one in the group. I don't have an offer. I'm kind of bummed. I'm really hoping I'm getting it this day. Of course he is too. It's kind of just that chase. You're just chasing him at that point. And I remember they didn't offer him. And I'm just like, that's weird. And over the next few months, they kind of just toyed with him, had him come to camp, had him come to some games. And I remember seeing
dumb. They never should have had him run routes. They never should have had him run a 40. They never should have had you do a camp. Rondale, JJ, all you guys are guys. Wandale are all guys, in the surrounding area are guys that we should have been at on Friday nights, going to watch in person whenever they have a home game.
And that's what I told the staff when I decided to not. I didn't even put them in the top 10. I think I put Kentucky in the top 10. If I'm being honest, now that was only for Mr. Football purposes.
Smart man. I love the clarification now. I'm glad somebody's owning up to it.
My man knows his audience.
Honest, it was
told
for
you had to do that.
purposes.
Your dad, Chris, or one of the Trinity
guys? Chris.
Yeah.
Chris was like, he knew, like, for me, it was really like a top like 6. Like, I didn't really have a top 10. The last 4 schools were like, okay, they look good, and I think a top 6 just sounds funny. So let's put this top 10 out. Got a little bit of political help, a little bit of, okay, I've got 2 academic schools in here. I've got Stanford and Vandy. In the back of my head, I don't say close to home, so I'm not going to Vandy. Like, so it was honestly really funny. So going throughout that whole process is just like, really, it's just so much different. And then honestly, getting into Louisville, I hear that Brom's going to come back. I still have Brady's number, his son.
That's
Brady, mind you, Brady is, as much as a coach as he's not coaching any football, but like, I don't even know how to explain it. Like, Brady's been around a long time. Brady
knows. We don't know how to explain it.
No way he doesn't know
Brady.
Football.
Yeah,
he knows how to talk and connect with people.
Yeah, he's really good. He's gonna be just like Greg. I think a little bit. I love Greg. Maybe a little bit funner Greg. Just a young spruced up Greg. That's all. Greg's fun.
Yeah.
But I think it's gonna be so good for Greg. Anyway, he's the guy who like picked me up on the golf cart at Purdue, and I'm just like, Brady, man, like, how you doing? And he's like, oh, I'm good, man. Like, how are you doing? Like, you're in the transfer portal. And I'm like, I am. I saw some news today. And he's like, well, yeah, we're in Louisville right now. What are you doing? He's like, are you home? And I'm like, no, I can be home, like, I don't know, in a few days though. And he's like, all right, bet. Like, I get your phone with my dad. So then I end up calling Brom, doing an official visit. Mind you, I think they put us up in like the golf. I don't even want to stay there. I just told him, I was straight up, I was like, hey, I'm just gonna stay at home.
I'm staying at home, man. What you mean?
I'm gonna stay at home with my dog. My mom's cooking in my car. So thank you. Appreciate you guys, but I'm just do that.
I'll just commute down there, man.
Thanks. Just tell me what time I gotta be there. It's a 15-minute drive.
Once a commuter, always a commuter in Louisville, man.
Exactly.
Yes.
So then I remember I go the next day. I kind of have a short conversation with Brom. It's just like, look, this is what I want to do. Like, I want to be a leader for your team. I'm not looking to be an all-star. If I was looking to be an all-star, I felt like I would have already took my shot at the league. I don't need 6 figures in NIL, because if I felt like I was worth 6 figures, I would went to the league. Like, I just want another opportunity to play good ball. If I'm being straight up with you, I don't know how ball looks. Like, I don't know how the future looks. I feel like I could go to the NFL. I feel like I still want to. My head hurts. At the same time, like, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, how long do I want football to last at this point? Like, I love ball, but it's like, I'm giving you everything honestly. And he's like, no, Stephen, like, I think we have a great opportunity here. Let's come in and let's win games. It's one thing I can promise you I'm going to do is win. And I'm like, that's all I need. So we come in, we have a great spring ball, have a great camp, have the best season I've had in college, make my first championship game, first bowl game, and get a lot of good experiences with a great team. So, I mean, it was honestly a great experience to be able to, come from Stanford, go through a second recruiting process, and finally pick back up with Brom, who I felt did a great job with some of my friends that had went to Purdue. They had all had good things to say about him. He's a winning guy. He wants to put you in the best position. And for me, even selfishly, my thought process throughout this whole second time was, again, I just want to find somewhere where we can win as a team, but also I can win individually. Like, back to that whole process of what do you have in mind for me? What's your intent for me? Because if we're being 100% realistic, just like you are to me, I don't have to be here. This is a 5th year. I've graduated. Like, what else? Like, I'm gonna get a master's. That's great. But like, I don't technically have to be here. So I just want to know what everybody's intent is. And selfishly enough, I was just like, even if he's selfish, there's no reason that Jeff Broad would ever want to see me do bad. No reason. You know what I mean? Like, Louisville guy, Trinity guy, another hometown guy, like, let's just blow up and do the best we can. And it ended up being the best season I could have asked for, and just a great experience.
Even got to get a win against Notre Dame for yanking you around a little bit, huh?
A little bit. I got to talk to the coach after the game, and he was like, hey, man, I just wanted you to know, like, I didn't mean for it to end up that way. I'm like, oh, it's no, I'm not upset about it. It's business. I just wish it would have turned out differently. But now
like
everybody's
on just cheated on or a guy that just cheated on his girl. Like, what are we doing?
That's what I'm saying. I'm just like, I'm not upset about it, but like, it's okay. We're 6 games into it. You don't have to apologize now. It was a quick conversation.
I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed.
Yeah, facts.
Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to go party with my teammates.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, going back to the part during the second recruitment, obviously you say going to the portal, your intent is you want to win. Obviously, Brom at that point, he's an established winner up to that point. Took Purdue to Big Ten championship. He basically put Purdue in a spot they'd never been in before. But how difficult was it to maybe take that risk? Even though he is a proven winner at that point, but he's heading into a year one situation, bringing in almost an entire half of his roster is new. There's not guarantees there, even though he is a proven winner. Was there? How did you kind of deal with that element of risk there? That while obviously Brom has all the intent in the world on winning, and you want to come win, but there's not the guarantee that that's going to materialize in that year one under his helm. How'd you kind of grapple with that? With your final year, there's not a guarantee that there's going to be a lot of winning.
Honestly, just my self meetings, man. My one on me's, just having good talks and just trying to keep myself up. I'd done a lot of losing at that point. I found a way to uplift myself and kind of persevere through those hard times and find a way to get out of it and try to invest in it. Grow as a player. One thing I try to keep myself pretty responsible on and accountable over the years is just how am I improving daily as a player? How am I improving daily as a student? I can't promise you that I improved every day in both category, but it was definitely a situation, a meeting that I had with myself on how I was going to do better the next day. And so coming into Louisville in a place that honestly I hadn't really been around in a few years. It's this new place. Leslie and Cobb are telling me I'm like this California guy now. Right? And they're like, you got tattoos and you wear your
y'all
shorts.
Y'all gotta realize who these two guys are. They're two of the most country dudes you'll probably ever meet. They'd probably hate the fact that I'm saying that, but they're country as hell. Twang.
Indeed.
Cobb coached at Somerset and Leslie played ball at West Virginia. I mean, they're just
So I remember I'm just coming in. They're like, what are you gonna do? And I'm just like, I'm just gonna do what I've always done. Just adjust and play good ball. That's what I did when I came here, right? And they were like, I mean, yeah, that's for what I felt like I did when I went to Stanford. Just adjust and play good ball. Same thing here. So I come back to Louisville, and as you can imagine, the culture shock that Stanford was for me originally, Louisville 4 times different, 4 times worse. Honestly,
I believe
coming to this place that isn't even really made up of Louisville. It's like 60%, 70% South Florida.
Yeah.
I don't understand half the things these guys are saying. If I'm
being
100% honest with you. If I'm being 100% honest, I didn't get it. And I'm just sitting there, I'm just like, man, I remember those first few weeks. I'm talking to my parents about it, and I'm just like, I don't know. I don't know if this was the right decision, if I'm being honest. And they're like, well, why do you think that? I'm like, I just don't know if I get along with these guys. I don't know if this was the place for me. I still trust Brown. I liked Hagan a lot. Hagan was a good dude, and I really enjoyed Ron English. To this day, I think Ron English may be one of my favorite coaches I've ever had. He's the only coach I've ever had that came in on the very first day of fall camp and said, if you MFers listen to me, the rest of this camp, the rest of this season, we can go to the SEC championship game. We're gonna win. We're gonna win 10 plus games. I was told. Literally, we're gonna win 10 plus games. Not all of them. We're gonna win 10 plus games or SEC championship game. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, I ain't done much winning, buddy, so I don't know about that one.
So I'll do it. I'll do it if you want me to get the championship.
That's what I'm saying. It always seems
do whatever you say.
He's in, believe me, every year I'm watching the film. I'm like, okay, these guys are beatable. Everybody's beatable until I went out and lost. So then I'm getting here and we're having all these in these spaces. And I remember just me having to kind of sit my own self down and kind of just compartmentalize, first of all, who I was, who these guys were, what our paths was, and what our common goal was. And the quick thing I came on is that these guys knew how to win. They knew how to play football. Maybe they weren't the smartest guys in the world. Maybe not everybody in the room understood every single small thing about football that I felt like I understood. You know what I mean? Whatever it was, these guys wanted to win just as bad as I did. And these guys love football just as much as I did. So I was like, all right, I can get behind that. I can get
Speaking
behind
of
guys.
that winning, y'all are rolling, and we hit Pitt, and you all drop Pitt. What's going through the mind in the locker room? Obviously, I'm sure it's not a fun talk with Jeff and the staff immediately after the locker room. Sunday meetings, I'm sure, are not fun, but internally with the guys, I mean, we're having such a special year up until that point. What's going through y'all's mindset?
Personally, as a seasoned guy, I knew we was gonna lose that game before we even started it.
Damn.
Like, I guess
Why'd you have to say that, man? I was over here.
I guess
I
it
was
wasn't
over here that week.
it wasn't like a known fact. Like, I thought we were gonna lose. I went out there and gave my best effort, but I could just tell by the morale, the mentality going into it. It's a rainy Saturday in
Ronaldo goes
Pitt.
down.
That
There's
exactly.
so many weird things that happened at the
So
beginning.
many weird things that
Crap
happened
game.
over the week. It's this trap game with this team that honestly has lost a lot of games, but they've all been within a tug. So, like, let's keep that in mind. And I remember English all week is like, don't let these guys' records get to you. Like, they can win. They're gonna come in and they're gonna just do what fits for them. It's gonna be a long, nasty game. They're just gonna try to run the ball, a little pass here, a little pass there, just to get first downs. They're gonna try to wear you down. And I remember sitting there and I'm like, no, he's right. Like, I watched the film. He's right. And we get there, first drive, everybody looks slow, including me. I look slow. I feel slow, and I'm just like, man, like, I just can't. I'm trying my best to get the sideline pumped up. It's not going. And long story short, we get to the end of the game, get in the locker room, and Brahm's upset, but I do feel like Braun was really good at compartmentalizing and planning when to let out these upset bursts. So when we come in the locker room, first of all, at halftime, and that's when he snaps. He snapped at halftime. And then
he's a quarterback, so he's got all that stuff down pat.
Yeah, he told us straight up at halftime. He said, "I don't know how the rest of this game's going to turn out, but I tell you what, if I don't see some effort out of you guys, I will go find a whole new team. Everybody's on the bench will play next week." And we all looked around. I was like, "Look, like, I just know I need to play. That's all I know. So I'm gonna go out there, continue to get my best effort, man." And of course, things got a little better, but still lose the game. Post game, he didn't really say too much. We get back home. He gives us a talking to on Sunday in meetings, but really it's pretty low key. He's upset, but it's one of those kind of after you already pissed your mom off and you kind of already got your punishment, and then you get your talking to later. Like, she's still a little sensitive on the topic. Don't say anything too crazy, but like, she's trying to be calm. So
don't try and over explain anything.
Exactly.
Yes,
he's trying to be calm
sir.
in this meeting, and he's like, let's watch the plays. So we always watch the plays that we didn't do too good on. And we watched it, and he's like, all right, we're gonna meet in groups today. And for groups, for us, was like offense, defense. He always said positions if we're going to regular positions. And for us, we knew that was like, that's a big thing. That's not supposed to happen. We don't do that too often. You know what I mean? That's only on like Mondays or like Thursdays before we're getting everything on lockdown or coming together as a group, and it's a walkthrough day, whatever it might be. Yep. And we're just watching this film. Ooh, this was a rough film session because the way we would watch film, whether we were planning for a new game as a defense or watching the old game, and we just didn't do well, they wanted us to fix something as a group, is he would get a whole script of probably about 20, 25 plays to watch. Not all of them. Of course, he could have pulled all of them. And he just English goes through those plays, and he's making his calls. He's coaching his guys up, and he stops it. He's like, I don't hear any other coaches coaching these guys. All of a sudden, no. Everybody getting the earful. Everybody, even the GAs are giving earfuls. And I'm just like, oh, man, this is a rough one. I lost a lot of games, but they didn't look like this. I'll say that. They didn't look like this. Like, I didn't get an earful like this. So I'm sitting there. I remember, like, some of the guys are kind of bummed. Mind you, I've already been through a loss. Like, this is I'm gonna bounce back. I'm okay. I remember, like, kind of getting into something we had learned, especially as a defense, a D line earlier in that season, is like Georgia Tech, first game, terrible second quarter. We like 4 tugs in the second quarter, terrible second quarter. Maybe honestly, I think even in my time at Stanford, which we got blown out one game like 56-0, I think that may have been my worst quarter on record.
Okay.
And so I remember, like, I don't check my phone at halftime, but I remember seeing all the tweets post game calling for Jeff's firing. Like, should we have ever even hired this guy? And I'm like, oh, these dudes are tripping. Anyway, at halftime, I can see everybody kind of down. Mind you, my biggest worry going into the season is perseverance with these guys. Because a lot of these guys are new. Not everybody on this team has started, whether it's been here, elsewhere. How much perseverance have we been through as a team, as a group? That's what I'm worried about. We get in this game, it hits us early. And I remember like one of our D linemen looking at me, he's like, bro, like, how are you staying so calm? We're getting busted right now. We were just busting them. I'm like, bro, I don't think you get it. Like, I've been here before. And mind you, me and him are in the same fraternity. So I'm just talking to him. I'm just like, hey, man, like, just got to persevere through it. Just got to find a way. Like, find a way to win the game. Like, that's all it takes. Just find a way to win the game. So we did that. We get out of it. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Keep going.
Oh, I was just going to bring it back to the pit game and post-pit game. I kind of talk with the D-line. I'm like, hey, guys, we've been in rough situations before. The difference is we didn't find a way out of it this game. I think we needed that loss. I think it was able to propel us forward. I think if we got that loss, I don't think we end up as good as we do, honestly. I think we may end up losing 2, maybe a third game. I think we could have hit honestly a bad little hill at the end of that season if we didn't find a way to recompartmentalize and take accountability as a team, as a group, before we got into that end stretch of big teams. Another team that we're going to see in Miami, who's kind of shaky, but they've got some real athletes down there.
And it's hard to win at their place. At least
you're telling me. You're telling me, and it was hot. I knew it was going to be hot. I don't mind the heat, but I was like, dang, I did a really good job.
You know how they do that stadium, right?
Yeah.
Where the sun only hits your side and the rain only hits your side.
Honestly, it was rowdy though. It was cool. But I remember getting into the game, and honestly, that's the game where I got concussed. But anyway, we see those last 3 games. We have Miami, the Kentucky game, and then a hopeful championship game that we're still fighting for. So just trying to echo to everybody that this loss meant something. Let's not let it just go for no reason. Sometimes hard work is is for good reason and it pays off. Sometimes hard work is just hard work. Simple as that. Like let's find a way to win.
So I got one last question for me, and then we'll get you out of here soon. So I remember talking to you at Fall Media Day, and one of the things I remember the most is how you referred to Stanford's nickname for the stadium as the library.
Mm-hmm.
And so, what was it like going from that to playing in a game where the lid was about to blow off in like the game against Notre Dame and Kentucky?
Ooh, I honestly really wish I would have got to play that Kentucky game. I was pretty bummed about that. The Notre Dame game, lights out. Honestly, like Georgia Tech game was about to be the Murray State. Who was our third game?
Indiana and Lucas Oil.
Indiana was a good one. There was 3 guys from Stanford that had transferred to Indiana, so that was really cool to see. Anyway, we kind of get back to Virginia Tech and all of these. We hit our little stretch at home. And that's where I felt like, of course, Murray State, like, cool game. It was our first home game. It's a Thursday night game. Hopefully, I'm not playing the whole game. So it was fun. It was exactly. It was a good opportunity to see the fans and kind of see what they're all about. Mind you, I've grown up with these fans. I kind of understand, how everything goes. If you're not doing well, you better figure it out quick. If you are doing well, let's stay up there. Yeah. So kind of just getting into. Really into no.
My bad. Forgot to plug my computer up. Anyway, what was the question one more time?
Oh, basically, what was it like going from a place where you literally called it the library to an atmosphere where like the stadium's about to erupt?
Yeah, I don't know. Kind of just getting into it. You guys were at the Notre Dame game. You guys understand just like the absolute, just like, I don't know, like tenors. That place was shaking. I had never been in that situation. Like I had been in some pretty rowdy games, but mind you, like I'm hurt freshman year, COVID season, junior year, still kind of like getting out of COVID. And then senior year, I'm trying to think, senior year, we had a pretty rowdy game at Notre Dame, but that was also Notre Dame's like kind of down year. Like ended up thinking they were going to do really good and ended up kind of going like, I don't know, like 7-4 or something like that.
Yeah, they lost to Marshall.
Yeah. And didn't they lose to us? Mind you, before that, I don't think.
That's right. Yeah, y'all did beat them year 1 of Marcus Freeman. Yeah.
Yeah, we beat them year 1 of Marcus Freeman at Notre Dame. And that honestly was one of the rowdiest games I had been in before that because everybody's doing the lights at halftime. It's fun. It's cool. And then I see this Louisville game. And mind you, I'm seeing all the highlights and stuff, and I'm like, oh, it's rowdy. I went to games as a kid, but it's not crazy. No, it was crazy. It was crazy. That place literally erupted. Just seeing the fireworks come out, the smoky tunnel on the run out. I remember just coming out and like running past kind of like the photographers at midfield and like kind of just going to say a little prayer and then like getting up and just like doing a complete 360 and just looking around like, wow. I've never been in a stadium this packed like this with like this much like enthusiasm for the game. Like it was just so much to take in that moment that I was just honestly on cloud nine going throughout the game. And for me, like one thing that I felt like was big for this season that I was able to feed off the fans is that, like I said before, I wasn't coming in to try to be the all-star for the team. I just wanted to come in and win and have another good year of football. That was kind of my only goal, and wherever it took me, it took me. And then to be able to experience that with those fans was amazing. They really made it worthwhile.
It was a fan base that was desperately hungry for good football. For several years prior, we could sit wherever we wanted. We could yell at our friends sections over, and they would hear us loud and clear. And that inability to win close games just ultimately caught up to that coaching staff and really where the program was. So last year, there's just this hunger for good football. And to see the success in year one only builds for the future and so on. So let's do this in two parts. We'll use this as the last question. Let's start with you. What does the future hold for you? You've officially announced that you've walked away from football and that you are on to the next part of your life. So talk us through just a little bit of what that journey has been like and how, just the transition from football to being an adult like us. And then what do you think about this squad, specifically the defense coming up this season? So I'll let you take care of both of those.
Okay, to start off with me as an individual, like what's next? So currently I'm working down at Mercedes-Benz, our headquarters, like our North American headquarters down in Sandy Springs, Georgia, which is probably 20 minutes from Atlanta. Just a really good partnerships that I was able to kind of come across in my time at Stanford. I kind of met somebody, it was a family friend that I really didn't know that well and was able to kind of connect and come into this position. And it's been really cool. I think it's been a learning experience because I've had jobs, but never corporate. So it's been different. It's been a place that again, kind of have to go through that same period of limbo that I went through in my early time at Stanford of kind of just shutting up. Kind of just just learning, just trying to grow, ask questions, and just be a sponge. So I think that I don't think that's it though. I think I think that very early I'm getting into corporate and I'm realizing that I don't know if it's enough. I think it's fun. I think it's a cool place to be able to put a lot of work into, but I would like to have something that I call my own. But I don't know if that necessarily means I break away from corporate over the years or what. Like I said earlier, one thing that I do know is that I love cars. I rebuilt cars. I flipped a lot of cars in my time at Stanford, and that's how I made a little extra money out there. And then going back home, I did the same thing. Like I knew everybody. I had a buddy who had a shop. It was really easy. And then coming down here, learning the business side of it has been really cool. So I mean, it's been amazing. But I think I would like to get my hand into something new. I've got a lot of friends from Stanford who are starting startups right now that I'm interested in, or just some other things of my own. But I think in the next year or so, I wouldn't be surprised if I see myself coming out with my own company, at least to get it started.
We wouldn't be surprised either, Stephen.
Yeah, I'd like to try it for sure.
I mean, for me, like the thing that I struggled with the most going from being an athlete and working up in the football office is that like positive affirmation and negative, yelling MF this, MF that you don't really get in the corporate world.
Nope.
I mean, yeah, like
don't try me. We're going to HR, baby.
Exactly. Like I'm so
and
used
that's
to,
the funny part is
and
that's
stuff can wait
right now
and stuff
HR.
can wait till tomorrow. Stuff can wait till tomorrow as well. Like my
Mm-hmm.
boss told me this early on. He's like, you do not have to be up here till 7:00 working on stuff. You save stuff for tomorrow. Like you can sit. Like I don't need everything now.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, that's like another but what you said, being a sponge, that is the biggest key to anything in life in general, is just being able to take information, retain information, and use it for a positive purpose in your life.
Yeah, just trying to be one thing that the English was really good. Ron English was really good about having these quotes he'd put up every week. And again, Ron English is the only coach I've ever had that came in and told me how something was going to go, and it went that way. Like that really just sticks with me. And I told him this.
Beatty could have told you the same thing.
Yeah, he could have. Definitely could have. He had a different way of saying it, but definitely could have. But I remember like we're out in San Diego. We're on like this like a boat like 2 days before the game as a team, kind of like a team dinner. And I'm sitting with English. He's smoking like a cigar, and we're just sitting out there having a conversation. And he's like what makes you come to a place like this? He's like, I just wanted to know that. And I'm like, what do you mean, coach? Like, I'm from here. And he's like, nah. Like, he's like, I'm from the Bay. Like, you know that, right? Like, I went to Cal. I'm like, oh, I knew that. Like, for sure, I knew that coming in. And he was like, it's a lot different. It's a lot different. Not a lot of guys come back home. And I'm like, honestly, like, I felt like the same reason that I needed and wanted to go out to Stanford to grow as an individual was the same reason I wanted and needed to come back. Is so that I could experience that, take everything that I learned from that side of the world and go plant it back here. I don't know. I like to do philanthropic endeavors and all this type of things in the city that helped mold me. Like, why not bring all this back to the city? Anyway, how do we feel about this team? Pretty dang good. Do I think it's going to be a little harder to win this year? Maybe, but not because any less talent. I think it's just because, like, I don't know, it's a new year. It's not your first year anymore. People aren't surprised. They've seen this defense, they've seen the offense and how it goes, and people are going to start finding ways to try to win. But with that, I will say that, I don't know, as you guys have been able to see, at least offensively and defensively, these coaches have gone into the portal, found who they wanted. Some guys have found new places to go from Louisville, and a lot of new guys have come into the place. And I think that one thing that I saw that these coaches were really hands-on with and did a great job with last season, last spring ball, winter conditioning through camp and into season was getting guys prepared as a group, getting guys to be able to lean on one another, bringing all these different guys in from South Florida and Texas schools and California schools and all these, guys who are jumping up in levels or going, whatever it may be. You're bringing all these guys with different egos, different mentalities into this same place. Like, how's this going to work? This is not the same college atmosphere that I came into with no real transfer portal and no NIL. Guys didn't transfer back then. Like, what is it? How do you do this? I remember I'm just kind of sitting there in the background because I had never been through this. I had never really seen transfers, anything like that. And the way I saw them take hold of this group, really command the troops, get everybody to kind of just get on the same page, no egos. And of course, you got guys who still want to perform for themselves, but like it all consisted from a good place for the team.
Yeah.
And the
I've
same
said it 100
guys,
times on this show, like the easiest way to get drafted, not easiest, it's not easy to get drafted, but your team has to win. Our 2-10 season, we had 0 people at our pro day. It was, or we probably had 3 or 4. It was an embarrassing number for Louisville. And look at how many guys were at this year's pro day.
Exactly. If you just win, it's just like, oh, okay, they're winning. So even a guy who was getting, splitting time on the O line, you're gonna get picked up somewhere, buddy. Like, you guys won. How you've proven that you can win, whether you helped that much individually with it or not. You've been on a winning group, and you've proven that you've been a part of a winning mentality. That looks huge to NFL coaches.
Like you said, even those rotation guys are guys that, like, you talk about the hits and the concussions and things like that. If you're putting up good numbers as a rotational player, that means you're taking less hits on your body. NFL loves that.
That's something I realized a little bit earlier in the game. I remember like getting into like my junior year is when I first took over the starting role, like 100%. Like, I worked into it a lot during that COVID year, but junior year, named started game 1 and came out with a boom. And I remember like complaining to my coach, like, Coach, like, why are you taking me out? I want more plays. Like, he's like, Steven, you're playing like 40 plays a game. And I'm like, Coach, but like such and such is playing 55. We had 60. Right. I want 55. And he's like, I just don't think so. Like, I just don't think you need that. And I remember I just so hard headed on the topic. Again, this is my first year starting. Really, at least in that aspect of it all, I was a freshman again. I had never been in this position. And he was just like, I'm just gonna do you a favor. You don't want that. You don't want that. Like, it's not like, I remember him telling me straight up, and he was like, you haven't had a lot of big injuries, but so far while you've been here, you came in with a knee. You got a left shoulder problem. Broke a thumb. Like, you know what I mean? Like, let's start adding everything up. Let's be realistic. And I was like, I never really thought about it that way. Like, I never really, I thought concussions were the only thing that really mattered at that time. And he was like, no, like, I remember he took me to talk to our running backs coach. Ron Gould. Ron Gould, he coached at Cal. He coached Marshawn Lynch with that group. Everybody, you know what I mean? Like a real running backs coach. And so I'm just sitting there talking to him, and he's like, "Why do you even want 55 snaps a game? Like, what's wrong with you?" I'm like, I want to play. I want to prove that I'm the guy that can be out there for
thinking
that
you're
long.
being the dude, like the
He's like that's not that ball anymore. It's not that level of ball anymore. It's different now. Like you have to be a guy who can play 30 to 35, maybe 40 snaps a game, and you are winning on 65 to 70% of your pass rush plays. You're not having really any MEs or missed techniques or anything like that. Like, where are your errors coming in? And that is when I felt like I was able to just like, it just opened a whole separate part of the game for me. And it was just like I knew I had to limit my errors and do all of these things, but that was where it really opened up. And that was where I felt like I kind of just like, I just tried to just like honestly preach that onto our D line room, especially anybody who would listen this last year is just like, hey, like it's all about winning as a team. I promise you, everything's gonna work out as long as we can win as a group. Everybody's name is gonna get put on that big poster when it says we won an ACC championship, the winningest team in Louisville football history. Everybody's name's gonna be on a poster. I promise you that. So
y'all get a ring. Everybody gets a ring.
Saying. That's what I'm saying. So like let's find a way to win. I remember like that was just such a big thing for me. And then talking to some of the guys, Ashton's gonna have a huge year. I'm so excited for Ashton.
Yeah.
What I didn't realize last year when I got there is like I had met Ashton like on the official like really quickly, not really talked to him a lot. Honestly, it was kind of funny because he gave me a weird look, and I was like, oh, like maybe we're not cool. You know what I mean?
He doesn't like
that. That's what I'm saying. I remember getting there, and Ashton's like one of the first ones to talk to me. He can tell that I'm kind of like bothered with some guys that is just like so different personalities. I'm already bothered with it, right? And Ashton's like, bro, like you just got to be here for a minute. It's just everybody's personality. Like they trying to get you riled up. You're the new guy.
Dudes will argue about. I've heard guys yelling at the top of their lungs about LeBron and Kobe over like literally to the point to where people are having to separate them while we're eating dinner as a team. And it's like, you think it's the most serious thing in the world, and they're walking out together, getting in the same car, about to go play PlayStation later.
So being able to see all that, see all these guys grow and continue to try to be, I wouldn't really call it a mentor. It's not like I'm like, 30. So I would just try to be just
30 in football years. I guarantee you, they were like, how old are you? Steve? You about 35. Like or even better, I guarantee you got this. Why'd you miss that? Don't you have a Stanford degree? Don't you have a Stanford degree? How many times did you hear that one?
Everybody was calling me Stanford Steve there, man.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. The same thing with Ian Pfeiffer, who graduated from Vanderbilt. What are you doing? You went to Vanderbilt. This is easy for you.
Everybody was just sitting there like, all right, Stanford Steve, like what happened there? You messed up that play. I'm like, all right, bro, like I can mess up too, man. Like,
right.
I didn't mess up because I didn't know what I was doing. I messed up because I thought I was gonna make the play, and I didn't. My bad.
That's so funny. I love that.
All right, let me ask one more question of you. So you've been around a lot of these guys. I know it's a new team and there's a lot of new pieces, but one of the things we talked about this offseason is getting into spring. There needed to be a level of that like next step of professionalism, that next step of college football expectations. Do you think they're capable, the guys that are leading this team now, do you think that they're capable of getting the entire group? Obviously the coaching staff is going to do what they do, but in terms of just the overall mindset of these players, do you think that they're prepared to go out and put together a college football playoff season?
You guys know who the first few games are off?
Yeah, so Austin Peay and Jacksonville State are going to be your first two. So you should hopefully get a couple blowouts where you get some guys playing, third quarter, fourth quarter.
Yeah, I think those would be good games in order to get kind of some rotations set up, get everybody's confidence up. What I hope those games aren't is kind of turn into like another pit game, like a trap game, getting into that 3, 4, 5, 6 game. Those games right there that are going to be kind of more of a hard stretch again, where we're hitting, I don't know, the Virginia, who, they're going to pick up some guys in that portal, Duke, all of these other teams who have like, they still have athletes. They can still beat you on any given Saturday. Like, keep that in mind. So
they're all laughing because I make fun of Duke. That whole Duke week.
It's an inside joke with them.
Yeah. So like that whole Duke week, I basically came out and was just like,
it's not a real team.
I don't think Duke football is real, guys. Like I just don't.
They got shut out too. So
I don't care who their quarterback is. I don't care who they have. Like, Duke football at the end of the day, guys.
That's funny. But yeah, you come in with all these teams who have an opportunity to beat you. They've got athletes too. I think that the biggest question for this team is just going to be not not how was the beginning of your journey, how was the middle? I think the end depends on the middle. So I would say the end, but I think the middle is going to be their biggest stretch where they have to lock in. And I think that's where, do I think the leaders are capable? 100%. I think all the leaders on this team are capable of getting these guys out of any rut that they enter in, or keeping them out of the rut, out of the quicksand, and just flying high all season. I do think that if they were to come across some type of hardship, maybe mid-season, I think that's going to be the big turning point in them as a group. I don't know, coming back on the Sunday and saying, okay, what went wrong, not pointing fingers, not blaming anybody. Everybody did something wrong, whether we like it or not. Nobody did everything right. I promise you that. So everybody coming in and not being able to point fingers or blame guys, even behind closed doors, that honestly is more of a knife in the back than telling somebody straight up. Like, you going back to your dorm room with 3 or 4 guys and planting this seed in their mind, saying
Bro,
that, oh,
Steven
such and
should have
such.
made this play. But
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Such and such
yeah.
didn't do this. Such and such didn't do that. Only if they would have made that catch. I call those guys thieves. You
Start
still
pointing fingers.
coaching. You still resources. You still love from this team. There's no point to go plant these bad seeds of negativity across this group. You keep this team positive, this athletic team who knows how to win positive with winning coaches. I think they're going to end up in the same position with a better outcome next season.
Yeah, it's gonna
Yeah.
be interesting.
And that
I'm excited
bridge
for them. I like the staff. I like the players they brought in. I'm excited for them to go out and show out, and I hope they do so well.
Yeah,
Gotta make
and
sure
the
to get up for a
bridge-
couple games this year, then, man.
Yeah, I know. I'm excited,
Yeah.
especially I still got a few buddies at Stanford, so I was looking to try to find a way to that Stanford game later in the year.
Oh man, yeah.
Nope.
Getting you like a
What-
split jersey.
What polo are you wearing?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
I'm just gonna wear, like, I don't know, maybe just a red
White.
and white shirt.
White.
You
Just
can't,
red and
you
white
can't
shirt.
wear
no,
black.
Yeah.
no logos, nothing.
Nothing. No.
He's gonna wear an
Oh.
ACC hat.
Facts.
I just hope both
That's
teams
exactly
have
what's gonna
fun.
That's right, man.
That's exactly what it's gonna be. But
Oh my God.
being able to, I've got another friend at SMU. I'll probably make it to that game. SMU plays at Louisville this year, I think.
Yeah, that's gonna be a
That's
good
Correct.
game.
That's a tricky one.
Yeah, I think that one. SMU's got some athletes. I think
They're-
that.
Yeah.
So
think that-
slept on by so many people. Like SMU's dangerous.
Yeah, you're telling
Because they're
me
bringing
they are
back
dangerous.
almost their whole team.
Yeah, and Preston Stone's the real deal.
Yeah, for sure. They're incredibly dangerous. I think that honestly, that may be one of the biggest games on their schedule as far as like a teeter-totter game. Where's the rest of the season going to go from then on? I think if they can win that game, because that game's going to be gritty. You're going to have a lot of athletes on the other side of the ball. One thing that I do like about this team is I do like how many guys we brought back in the O-line room and D-line room. I feel like the D-line room, we did lose, I think, like 2 or 3 guys. But they were able to bring in some really good talent. The guy from Tennessee, I'm sorry, I forget his name. The guy from Tennessee, they brought in like another guy from Harvard. Like they got some real players coming this year. So I'm really excited to see all of the big guys work this year, because we know Braum is going to have an explosive offense. We know that English is recruiting crazy safeties and DBs and linebackers who are going to fly around and make plays. I'm really excited for the big guys on both sides of the ball to make plays this year.
So this is the part where I have to tell you that the guy from Tennessee re-entered the portal.
Did he? No, I didn't know that. That's on me.
Yeah.
I took a glance at us and we're all like, "Ooh, do we tell him? Do we let it go?"
I knew he had
literally couldn't let it
like
go.
the shoulder thing, and then I was just like, "Oh, okay, he's just gonna sit down." And then I just haven't asked about him in a while.
The shoulder thing turned into asking for a little bit more NIL money, and that turned into locker room cancer.
Yeah, I don't doubt it. That's
He actually plays for Miami, so we'll be playing against him this year.
oh
Yep.
wow. A perfect place to go ask for more NIL money.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Sometimes
Steven,
people don't always think.
Yeah, right.
Bro, we can't thank you enough for joining us this evening. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. It'll be definitely something that I would want to have you on later on in the season. I'm sure the guys will sign off on that for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. Stay
For
in
sure.
touch with us.
Maybe I'll make it a little bit shorter so I don't talk your guys' ear off.
No,
No,
it's all
keep
good.
Hell no. This
He's
is
talking.
perfect.
No, this is great.
We're used to like
Steve-
a lot of guys. We have to pull. It's like pulling teeth sometimes to get like 2 and we're like, come on, man. We set
Oh,
you
that's
up
no
with a
fun.
T right there for
That's
that
right.
one.
No
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
For sure. But no, I appreciate you guys. It's been super fun. I still love talking about ball and getting back to the game. And I don't know, maybe one day I'll find my way back to it in a coaching role or something. But until then, let's just be around it in the closest aspect we can.
That's right, man. That's right. Well, best of luck to you on your journey through the corporate world into adult life as you get a crock pot and an air fryer, and you're gonna be good, my friend. That's the best advice I can give you. All right, bro. There you go.
He went to Stanford. You thinking this man doesn't have a crock pot and an air fryer? Come on, he's way ahead of us, Jacob.
That's right. I know. I'm years behind. But thank you so much, Stephen. Appreciate you jumping on. And for the audience, be sure to stay locked in. We'll be back next week. We keep the series going here. We'll be joined by Steve Clarkson and Eric McLean from the ACC Network. So the show continues on. And until then, go Cards.
Go Cards.
Go Cards.